very, very nice to be back in Sweden, although it was very nice to be in South Africa too. Um, but I think Johannes' introduction there really embodies the last song. How unworthy am I? Right? No, I think this is a beautiful song. Sometimes we just sing the songs and we do our traditions. We don't actually think what we sing sometimes, but it is really beautiful, these lyrics, right? What a blessing to receive him in a love so tender and divine. I can never stop feeling how unworthy am I. I'm almost crying. It's actually very, very beautiful, incredible. And we sing this with just joy and love because the music fills us up, Sometimes we have to really appreciate. It's really a blessing of glory. Yeah. I did not intend to say that. That's not why I chose this song. I don't know these lyrics by heart, by the way, but it's moving regardless. I think we can appreciate these beautiful, beautiful lyrics. Yes, so I wanted to talk about culture today. This is a beautiful picture of South Africa. You can see Table Mountain. We actually have a few brothers and sisters from South Africa today with us. Thank you. Johannes said it is I who is beautiful. So thank you. It says my twin brother, right? It's a bit wow, smooth there. Very good. So I had the privilege of going to South Africa. I really only knew one person in South Africa, which was a sister called Kayon, who was in my team during COVID, during a workshop many years ago, right? And I just remember I reached out to her like 2 weeks before I left or something like that. And then she just basically was she called herself my personal assistant, right? Because she was arranging for me to meet the different second gen and for me to go there and go here, So it was really nice. I was very privileged to have that relationship with her and to be in South Africa. It was indeed a very special time to be in South Africa. Also, I was with Daniela also came. We had our honeymoon actually after the 4 days. We had our honeymoon in Cape Town, as you can see here. It was gorgeous. We sometimes we receive this blessing, and we receive all these things, and because sometimes we receive things, we don't take always ownership over it. Meaning, we don't appreciate sometimes. I might be out of line here, but sometimes we don't appreciate the things we receive because they're given to us. A lot of people, when you fight for something and you work towards it, you also give it value because you know what it took to get there, right? I found sometimes, I haven't heard about another couple doing a honeymoon. So I thought, okay, well, I would like to do that because I would like my relationship to be romantic. I'd like to invest in that. And not at all saying that we don't invest in our relationship. We definitely do. However, we can definitely be more romantic. I can be romantic, and I want that. So that's why I thought, okay, let's do a honeymoon, right? And now I'm poor, right? But I'm happy, but I'm poor. So we were also in Korea in February. So I thought it would be appropriate to talk about, now being back in Sweden, having been to South Africa, having been to Korea. There are many different culture that we can know and learn. And it is a privilege coming from a community such as ours that is quite introspective, very reflective. So I can go to another country and kind of observe. I feel like I have this foundation, from our community. And I also feel, the providence here in Sweden is very unique. And it's very unique in Korea, and it's very unique in South Africa. And so I observe how do the cultures mingle with the people, and how do they then express themselves and God and in their communities, and what are the obstacles, what are the benefits. And so I was trying to soak in my experiences in Korea and in South Africa to see, how can I be a better individual? Because we are amazingly an international community, right? I found so many things in common with the young adults and the second gen in South Africa and in Korea too, right? Because we are raised by our parents in this beautiful culture. And so I wanted to speak a little bit to that also. So I'm going to speak about the Swedish, South African, and the Korean culture, but also a little bit to Father's definition of a culture of heart. So, and yes, my beautiful spouse helped me with the slide. It was white before she did her work. So, the vertical true love relationship between God and human beings is the source of ideal true love in human relationships. The perfection of that love is attained in the ideal family that manifests the four great realms of heart. A true heart-centered culture blooms in the realm of an ideal family, in which the heart of peace, happiness, freedom, and ideals can be felt and experienced in life. We would not require the special consciousness of faith, because our whole life would be one of attending God and living together with Him with one heart in the realm of true love. That would be the reality of living in the kingdom of heaven with God's blessings to be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion over all things. Wow. So a culture of living together with God. And I think that's what each culture is destined to do and destined to attempt, right? And that manifests itself differently, right? In Sweden, it will look different than in South Africa and in Korea, etc., right? But that love. And I think, having been to now different communities, I feel that there definitely is that love in our different communities. So, speaking of love in communities and in cultures, the Swedish culture. So we have something called fika, and it's very beautiful, it's very unique. Our culture is very surrounded around drinking coffee and having buns together. But there are certain things that I have realized being to a place where there's hot weather in March, right? In South Africa. Because the Swedish culture, the Swedish mentality and personality is very actually dependent on the weather. We might not see it, but Swedish people, they tend to open up and be more friendly and happy when summer comes. And in the winter, we close ourselves a little bit, right? And this is quite unique. Actually, the first time I heard this was from my spouse, Daniela, who said she came here in January, February, where it was winter, and no one wanted to do anything with her. She was like, can we do some activities? And people like, no, right? It's like, what a weird question. But then, as the snow melted and the sun came out, so did the Swedes, right? And so then suddenly we were like, oh, we can spend time together, right? So it's very unique. And we definitely don't talk to strangers very freely, right? The elevator, for example, is not a place of conversation, right? That's merely to go up or down. You don't, even if you're going with someone you get in the elevator and, you're ready for the elevator, and then the open doors, it's almost that extreme, right? But I wanted to see, in this group here, we have quite a few Swedes, also a lot of international people. But I wanted to see, I wanted to know how Swedish we are, right? So I was going to do a test, and those online can do the same. We can see how Swedish the South Africans are. So I want you to raise your hand if you agree to the statement. And if you don't agree, you can leave your hand down, all right? Maybe we can turn the camera so we see, so the people online can see. It's more fun. Okay, so how Swedish are you? The elevator is not a place for conversations. Raise your hand. Oh, we have some. It's okay to raise your hand. I actually don't like talking in elevators either, so I will raise my hand. Let's see, next one. Everyone is expected to form an orderly queue when waiting to be served. Oh, wow. A lot of Swedish people in here today. All right, there we go. Okay. Arrangements are made in advance. Avoid appearing unannounced.
Can I go halfway?
You can. All right, so maybe there aren't so many Swedes in here. Oh, wow. Wrong crowd. Then we have Punctuality is very important. Avoid arriving too early or too late for an appointment or an arrangement. Wow. Trust me, all the South Africans are touching the floor right now with their hands. Because they have something called African time, right? Which means that they are allowed to be late, which is outrageous, right? All right. I remove my shoes when entering someone's house. All right. Oh, many sweets in here. Okay. When answering the phone, you say hello or hello and identify who you are. Yes. Even though someone's calling my number, I say, hi, it's Peter. All right. Every now and then, I have fika with people. Fika is the buns and coffees and all that. It is important to only take one of each flavor if you and fellow guests are offered a variety of cookies for fika. What? Not so many people. You don't take two of the same cookie. You're supposed to know this. We'll have a separate workshop for fika culture to indoctrinate everyone here. A full tour of the house is required when visiting someone for the first time. Yes. Yes. It's you go to someone's home and it's unknown territory. How are you supposed to feel comfortable and safe if you don't know all the furniture in the house? Offering something to drink is expected, preferably coffee. When coming to someone's home, yes. It is impolite to leave straight after finishing eating. Guests are expected to stay for coffee and some conversation. No? No? All right. Well, I'm taking notes here. I'll be expecting coffee from all of you who raise your hands after our meal. I don't talk to strangers and they don't talk to me. Yes. All right. Okay. So this is actually apparently for when I was writing my bachelor thesis, I was talking to my thesis partner, and I told him, we were talking about culture because I had been abroad a lot, and I told him, I feel very Swedish, and he looked to me as if I'd said something from another world. He said, "You are not Swedish, Peter." I said, "Whatever do you mean, right?" And he said, "Well, you are comfortable talking to strangers." I was like, "Yes." And he's like, "That is not Swedish, right?" And so the amazing thing for me, I'll go to the next slide here, going to South Africa, this is just some pictures, right? I decided to take pictures that I'd taken. I felt for the first time in my life, I felt like, I can talk to people here about anything. So all the Bolt drivers and the Uber drivers going to work, I would talk to them about the things you're not supposed to talk about. Politics, apartheid, race, God, I talked about anything and everything. And people were so open and friendly and so willing to talk about these things. And I told my colleagues that I talked about apartheid with my driver that morning. And they're like, "You did what?" But people they could feel my intentions were true. And so they were very open and happy to talk to me and educate me and all these things. And all of my colleagues, I talked to them about God, right? And my faith, right? Which is, in Sweden, it's like, if you want to make someone uncomfortable, that's like talking to someone in the elevator uncomfortable, right? That's like, you don't talk about God, politics, you keep the personal out of the professional, right? That's the definition, right? You keep them separate. And so it was very interesting. And I found that people were very, God-fearing also, right? People really loved and feared God. So God was a very prevalent thing in their society, in the South African society, which here is like, it was strange. So I've never felt more free. And it was a unique thing about South Africa is I've never been abroad, even in Europe, and I felt as at home as I did in South Africa, because people were so open to talk about things. And it felt like I spoke to someone and I'd known them for a long time. And that's also what I felt also going to the communities. I felt like I was part of the communities because, people were so open and friendly. So very beautiful. Of course, I managed to speak about race and do lots of jokes, and I didn't offend anyone. about in this regard. But I once brought up food, and I managed to offend a whole group of people because I said something about their food. I said, why do you put barbecue sauce on everything? And wow, I want an outrage, right? And I was like, no, we don't. We put lots of seasoning. What do you put on your meat? And I said, salt and pepper. And said, you are basic, you know. Whoa, where is this energy coming from? I thought I'd been so good, but no, I managed to offend. It was actually we were having a Sunday afternoon Easter egg hunt with all of the young adults in second year in Johannesburg, and then we were having a great time. And then I brought up this topic, and my Kayong, my friend and guide, she wasn't there for that. She came back and said, what happened? Why did you turn everyone against you, And another sister was like, oh no. When I brought it up, she literally put her hand against her face. It was like, oh, she saw the storm coming, And yeah. So it's interesting. Here you can talk about food and no one would care, right? But if you ask someone where they're from, they're like, that's a little racist, While in South Africa, you ask someone where they're from, that's like the least racist thing you could say. My colleagues were making distinctions between the races and the cultures, and because it's very natural, it's very normal. They have a very diverse society. So many times people saw me and they assumed I was from Johannesburg until they heard me speak, and they were like, you're not from here. So the food, I have pictures of food here. This beautiful cake-looking thing is actually a loaf of bread with a curry inside, and that's a potato. And that I ate that with my hands. Yes. It's silent in here, by the way, those who are online. It's uncomfortably silent. So there's also that. You eat with your hands, also different. The cars here, these are called taxis. They are like the road rage of South Africa. They do however they please, and they make the traffic unbearable. But anyways, it was quite remarkable. And I remember my first day, and I share this story with in South Africa too. My first day in South Africa, in Sweden, you don't, as I said before, you don't talk to strangers. You definitely don't talk to people in the elevator, right? So I remember I was walking down the corridor in my hotel, and this one man, he comes out of his room and he kind of tries to get my eye contact. And I, being Swedish, just walked past him, feeling his eyes following me. And then I go into the elevator and he actually also comes. And then he bends forward and he looks at me and says, like, what's wrong with me right now? And he's like, good morning, right? And then I'm like, good morning, right? And then I learned that actually you greet people. If you're in the same place, you greet people and you ask them, how are you? And then the response is good, how are you? Right? Good morning, good, how are you? That's like every person you meet, you have an interaction with. You don't just, you can occasionally, if you absolutely don't know them and you're in a mall and your eyes meet, you smile, right? But usually you say hi, you greet people. In Sweden, if you ask someone, how are you? It's literally, well, I didn't sleep so well, and it's cold outside, but my work is going well, and if you do that in South Africa, you're like, why are you telling me this? Right? So it's also a culture difference, right? And so it was a fascinating thing to learn. So I have a few pictures. I met a lot of brothers and sisters, and I decided to pick 4 of them. And these are the 4 pictures I have. There's 2 pictures of the top right is the Cape Town community. When I was introduced, they sang a song and clapped loudly, and I was like, wow. I told them, we should do this in my community whenever I go up. I want them to sing me a song and clap and stand up and full of power, No, people are very comfortable sitting here and nodding me when I come up. So there's also a culture difference. Here we have, this is Noella, this is Auntie Claudine and Uncle David's daughter, and their grandchildren. And then we have to the bottom right here is me, and there's Kayong, this is my personal assistant, and the South African national leader. And then in the bottom left are young adults from Joburg.
Which group did you insult with the barbecue?
The bottom left. The bottom left group is the ones I insulted with my food remarks. And so, good times for sure. It wasn't during this meal, but as you can see, the meat has some barbecue sauce. Now they're muted, they can't defend themselves. This is my chance. So, barbecue glaze or whatever. No, the food was incredible. It was very good, very good. Yeah, and it's fascinating also going to different communities, because also each community has a different culture, and each family has a different culture, right? And each individual also manifests and expresses themselves differently. I was only talking to my landlady yesterday. I came back home, and she spent a good hour with us, right? Very talkative. Yeah. And she was talking about sorting the trash and all kinds of things. And I eventually had to say, you know what, I'm preparing a sermon for tomorrow. I actually need some time. And she said, oh, well, now you have some ammunition. Talk about the sorting of trash. So you know, I guess that's also a cultural thing. It's very unique. And, you know, I walked in on Tim cutting tomatoes this morning in the kitchen, and he was cutting them very thin, and, you know, he said, you know, life is, the juice, tomatoes, the important is the juice of life, something like this. Also, you know, beautiful words. I said I'd add that into the sermon. It doesn't fit, but I said I would, so now it's anyhow, so a remarkable culture in South Africa in this regard, and even the Sunday service, it was given with so much energy and so much movement. It was so alive, right? And I feel, you know, surely we can take that. I can take something of South Africa with me. So actually yesterday, when we were going home from the airport, we got an Uber, and I spoke to the driver. Wow, how un-Swedish is that? But, you know, he was Muslim, he was doing Ramadan, and so it turns out that you can talk to strangers in Sweden too. He wasn't Swedish though, so maybe that's why. Yes, and so I want to go towards my next culture here, which is Korea. And so I decided to pick this picture. This is my teacher, Kim Son-Sengen, and almost all the second gen in Sweden know who this is, because I think 80% or 90% of the second gen went to Korea and had him as a teacher. And truthfully, when I was in Korea, I wasn't a very good student. I really wasn't. I'm going to be honest. Me and my brother were competing for the last spot. But it's fascinating, because when I came, he traveled 2 hours to meet me. Right? It's very important. This is part of the culture. He wants to give me an opportunity to honor him, right? That's the culture. And so he's honoring me. And when we had this food and we had coffee afterwards, he told me that I was an excellent student. Right? And I reminded him.
Maybe he mixed you up.
No. I reminded him that, you know, I wasn't very good, but that's also the culture, is because I was honoring him, and I really wanted to meet him, and I brought him some gifts from Sweden and whatnot. He in his mind, therefore I'm a good student, right? And so he was very proud of me, and I was very happy to meet Daniela, and I was very happy to talk. And so this also, the culture of honoring elders, and not just elders, but also your older brothers and sisters, is a very beautiful culture. And it also kind of comes back to the family, what True Father said in his quote, you know, the family, and, you know, it's very beautiful. Another example was the amazing diligence of the people in Korea and their incredible hospitality. Right? In South Africa, people met me, and they wanted to talk to me, and they wanted to kind of understand me. And I met the most fascinating people. I talked about God with almost every person I met, and they were like, how fascinating. I met Christians and I told them Jesus was not supposed to die. And they were like, what an interesting perspective, right? And here people were like, what did you say? You know, if they're Christians, right? And another person might be like, how do you believe in God, right? It's such a foreign concept to believe in God in Sweden, right? But in Korea, me and Daniela, we looked lost in the subway, and so this one lady approached us, and she asked, "Do you need help finding your way?" And I said, "Yes, we need to go there. Oh, please follow me." And then I tried to interact with her, but she had no intentions of talking to me. In fact, I think I made her a little bit uncomfortable, right? And she was there not as a social meet and greet like in Sweden maybe or in South Africa, but she was there to help us, right? And that was her duty somehow. And so, or another time we saw in Sweden, in the subway, you have people cleaning the subway, and they sit on this big chair-looking machine, right? And it's just kind of cleans the floor, and they look like this the worst day of their life. You know, it's like they lean back, and it's just like they look miserable, right? But when I saw the cleaners in South Korea, I remember this one lady. She was cleaning the sign. That kind of showing directions, and she had this cloth and she was wiping every part of the sign, and I thought, how amazing, she cleans this sign better than I clean my home. Yeah. And that's not a good example because I don't clean my home very well, but she really made so much effort, and I thought, how incredible. So it goes back to the culture of the country, right? Of, you know, they put so much love into what they're doing, right? And this kind of inbuilt respect, not towards only people, but also their environment, everything around. And so she probably didn't have to wipe that sign as thoroughly as she did, but she did. And I took so much from that. I could have just passed by and accepted it for what it was. But she put so much effort into this, and I thought that was incredible. And I don't think I'll ever see something like that in another country, right? Maybe somewhere else, but hopefully. But yeah, I was very amazed. And so the cultures really is fascinating. And I encourage each one of you to think about that when you go abroad. Surely some things are not great in all countries, right? Like South Africa has this African time, right? Where they can allow themselves to be late, which is outrageous. I'm talking to you guys online there. This is feedback directly to you. Or here in Sweden, where when we welcome someone home, we offer them something to drink, we show them our house. And there are beautiful things we have in Sweden, and the fika culture is tremendous, right? And of course in Korea too, you know, respect and everything. So I encourage each one of you to, when going abroad, is to understand people, where they're coming from, and how do they act the way they do, and why do they act the way they do. There's a lot of love to be felt and received in observing these differences. So I wanted to finish with another quotation from True Father. In order to establish a world of true heart-centered culture, we need to develop our personality through education and true love and true parentism. And we need to expand the movement that creates families of true love that have received God's blessing. Under that blessing, we can become ideal couples and families by continuously training ourselves through a life of faith in which we practice true love by living and investing for the sake of others. The only way the world and all humanity can expect to have a bright future is by surmounting the habits of extreme self-centeredness, individualism, and materialism. This is the only way we can protect people from immortality, the corruption of youth, and the breakdown of families. Yes, so it comes back to the culture in the family. And as we see each other, we're a big family here. I felt I had a lot of family in South Africa. Yeah, so thank you very much.